Hello everybody, welcome back to Gentlemen for Cinephiles. So, this is wrapping up the second week of the 2019 recap, and I'm so excited. Today we're talking about Uncut Gems, and honestly, the longer I think about it, Uncut Gems was probably in my top 3 of last year. It's probably in the top 3 for sure. Because, I don't even know how to describe it. I keep thinking about it. You know what I mean? It'll be the middle of the day on a Tuesday and I'll be like, wow, wasn't that so good? So Uncut Gems is a Safdie Brothers movie. I think I pronounced that right. I'm so sorry if I didn't. But it is about a jeweler in New York and his life. So he is trying to he's in the midst of trying to fix a lot of situations, and he purchases this magic rock, I guess, from Ethiopia, and it's super interesting because it comes into his life and then a whole bunch of circumstances happen, and he's just kind of trying to get the ultimate con heist gig of the lifetime. La la. That's the elevator pitch. So yeah, it is an excellent film. We're gonna kind of it is pretty much just the snapshot into this man's life. So that's pretty much the overarching plot of it. And it's such a fascinating film. It's such an excellent film. So let's go ahead and move along in. So some things I liked about it. I have a nice little list, okay? I have 3 big things I want to talk about in relation to Uncut Gems because I loved it. So the very first thing that strongly fascinated me, because I did not realize this until after the movie, and that is that good majority of the actors, they were asked by the directors in random circumstances. So for example, my favorite person in the movie, Julia Fox, she was a big person in the New York club scene that they asked to be in the film, and it's her first movie, and she does excellent. Then Kevin Garnett, he is a player on the Celtics. I feel that was a huge part of the movie, and I still didn't just sport, and then I just blacked out. Kevin Garnett, who I believe is a part of the Celtics, he just plays himself, which is interesting, and he was really good in the movie. And then you have Keith Williams Richards, who played, the really angry security guard, who, spoiler alert, ends up shooting our protagonist, Adam Sandler, at the end. They just found him on a train, on the subway, and asked him, do you want to be in a movie? And that blows my mind. And it really is a testament to, the film art becoming a lot more accessible, film becoming a medium of excellence and all this stuff, because it really shows you don't need big name actors to do good. You know what I mean? Now, good big name actors help. I think Adam Sandler holds the movie together in a lot of ways just because of by nature of his character and the way he's written in. I think Keith Williams Richards also has a movie lined up for 2020, and I was like, dang, guys, starting your acting careers. Yes, excellent. Uncut Gems. But yeah, so that was really, really great, because I think it created this really nice realism to the film, because I was trying to figure out what feels so realistic about the film. The movie feels almost like a documentary, honestly, in a lot of different types of ways, because of the way I think a lot of the scenes are formatted, which is we'll talk about in a minute, but I think a lot of that has to do with the really raw nature of the performances. Also looking at, the professional actors who had been doing it a lot before this, looking at Idina Menzel, and then Adele Dazeem. I'm sorry, that's an overused joke. I'm sorry, Idina Menzel. Then Adam Sandler. I thought they were also very hyper-realistic in the movie, and that was really, really good. Especially Idina Menzel, looking at her film acting, it was so great because she's a theater actress, but the way she was able to create this really nice realism was very, very interesting and very, very well done. And then even Adam Sandler, who I think is often, he's not theatrical, but he's over the top for film in a lot of times, and that comes from someone who was raised with films like Jack and Jill. So sometimes he's a little too much for screen, but I think he was used so effectively. And so what I'm saying, I think overall with the performances, is that the realistic quality to them, I think, is in high credit to the directors of the film. They did an excellent job, honestly. The film is very well directed, and I think that's the thing that it holds the whole movie together, honestly. But yes, moving on to the second thing I really liked about it. And the other thing that I think makes it feel like it has this pseudo-documentary feel to it is this kind of open format that all the scenes have, right? So all the scenes are very refined, but also the way they're shot, it's almost as if you don't even notice the cuts in the edit. That's how flowing the movie the movie flows so well that at certain points of time, you don't even realize that there are cuts happening, and you kind of just feel like you're there. One scene in particular that really emphasized this was when, okay, so Kevin Garnett, he really likes the stone that Adam Sandler's character gets from Ethiopia, right? And he really wants it, so Adam Sandler lends it out to him. And so, like, they leave the shop, and then they come back a couple days later after a lot of kerfuffle and a lot of drama about getting the stone back. They come back, and, you know, he comes back to get his Celtics ring and to tell him that he's going to keep the stone an extra day or something like that. I don't fully remember. I only saw it in theater once. I'm sorry if I'm missing particular details, but that is essentially what happens. And so it's already a really high-stress situation because, you know, the entire film is high-stress from Adam Sandler's perspective because he's kind of like half telling the truth, half lying to at least 7 people at any given moment. So it's really stressful to watch as a viewer secondhand, especially one who, if you get like super invested in the main characters, it's really difficult to watch because you're like, what the fuck is he doing? What is going on? He's gonna get found out. They're gonna find out. They're gonna get it. Oh my god. Oh my god. That's kind of what the whole film feels like. But this scene in particular. So yeah, they come back, and then in Adam Sandler's like jewel shop, there's like this door between, so it's like the main entrance door, and then it leads to this little tiny room that I think is like, you know, to screen for weapons and things. And then, you know, you go into the jewel shop, and like the little section between the first door to lead into the little room and the door to lead into the jewel shop, it's like this little like completely like cleared out room, right? And it locks and unlocks, right? It's just like a security thing. And Kevin Garnett, Adam Sandler's friend, and then a couple people who they're with, they get stuck in the little door space because it just is closed, like the magnet's not working. And that entire scene is the most stressful thing in the entire planet, honestly. I felt like it was a pretty accurate depiction of my life. I'm just kidding. But when you're watching it secondhand as a viewer, you're so stressed out in the situation that you don't even notice cuts are happening. It kind of just feels like you're in the corner of the room watching this happen and completely unable to help in any type of way. And that's where I think the reality of the film comes in. It really showcases the stress that is the real world, but also a heightened sense of that because, you know, one, it's a film, so you get a heightened sense of reality, but also the situation Adam Sandler finds himself in it's like that in a lot of the sequences of the movie, but that one in particular felt like that, and I think that's why the film feels so realistic. Not only the actors who are doing a really good job grounding it in reality with the direction, but also the way the scenes are open format, and it kind of just feels like one part documentary, one part improv, right? Where everybody's just kind of like going and 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 going. That's what it feels like, and it's so stressful. But yeah, so next, like, to talk about like the ending, I thought, well, okay, it's one part the ending, one part a lot of the other parts of the film. I really loved how the film played with traditional things we've been socialized to believe when it comes to Hollywood narratives, right? I thought it was a really, really good postmodern independent film that deconstructed this whole mythos of what it is to be a protagonist in a Hollywood movie, right? So have this sense in this, we have this sense in most Hollywood movies, and I'm saying like, you know, most in a general sense, like not like, you know, if you're watching a bunch of independent movies, maybe this isn't the case, but in a lot of normal Hollywood movies, you get the sense that like, you know, you have a protagonist, things are bad, but they end up okay, and then like he ends up better than he was before, and X, Y, and Z, and you get this kind of like sugar coating of all the situations. That is completely not the case for every single part of this movie, right? And I thought it was really interesting. So when you look at Adam Sandler, one part of the film that it indulged in that I didn't think it was going, like, I didn't think it was going to fully deal with it, but it did, was the whole idea that, like, Adam Sandler has this, like, she's, like, one part sugar baby, one part, like, mistress, and then you have his wife, Idina Menzel, and the way those two women function in his life, it's done super fascinating, and it really delves into both of their relationships. So, for example, the woman who's his mistress, she's a very, you know, she's a very young woman, and she's very street intelligent, street smart, but the relationship she has to him in this, like, pseudo sugar baby relationship, it doesn't shy away from anything in terms of that. It was really, really interesting, and I really, really loved her character, and how sexually open she was, and, like, all of that. I really loved it, but also in the same breath, it's interesting, too, because, you know, she's the sugar baby, we have these, like, we have these preconceived notions of what that means, you know, women are lazy, they take advantage, blah, 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 blah. But she's the one who's really holding together a lot of the movie and holding together, I think, Adam Sandler's psyche in a lot of ways. He is very dependent on her specifically, and I thought the way they showed that dependency was really, really interesting and something I don't see when I see people deal with relationships younger women have with older men. The dependency the older man has on the younger woman, that's something that not a lot of people talk about or deal with, and the way the film dealt with that I felt was hyper realistic. And then moving on to, you know, Adam Sandler and Idina Menzel, I thought their relationship was also really interesting, because when you look at a protagonist in a Hollywood movie who has problems with their spouse, eventually they overcome it together, they become closer, or, you know, they get better, or like they understand where the other's coming from, all of that, you know, you get this kind of sugar-coated sense of it, you know what I mean? So even if, you know, they don't end up together in the end, they come to a higher understanding and they respect each other. Something like that. That's usually what that kind of relationship would be shown. But their relationship is just terrible. My little sister had to leave for like 5 minutes because like it was so reminiscent of what those relationships are actually like, you know? Like, particularly the moment where Adam Sandler's like, please give me another chance, and Idina Menzel just goes, I don't want to look at you, I don't want to see you, I don't want to give you another chance, I'd rather sleep on the floor than sleep next to you. It's so hyper realistic how, like, you know, toxic relationships and, you know, toxic marriages and all of that, how that functions. It was so realistic, because my little sister, you know, she's going through a situation like that now. It's so hyper realistic, and it doesn't sugarcoat anything. It completely delves into it, which was very, very, which was very, very fascinating, and I think also helped ground the film in reality, 100%. And then, you know, also looking at the other way the film really, really plays with the Hollywood format was the ending. Now, I was shocked. I've never, and maybe it's just me, but I've never jaw-dropped so hard at an ending ever in my life. I don't remember jaw-dropping like this ever in my entire life. Like, it was crazy. It had what I, like, imagine the Psycho effect was, right? When in Psycho, when Psycho came out, you know, everybody's watching the movie, they're watching the movie, it starts off with this woman, you're following her, she steals this money, you're watching her go through the events, you watch her get into this hotel, and then she's killed off. And the jaw drop of that reminds me a lot of how I felt in Uncut Gems. And I think that's because it played so heavily into, like, what you expect as a spectator, you know, from watching other movies around the time, right? The reason Psycho's so effective in killing off the lead woman is because that was something that was unheard of. And I think in a lot of ways, I also was socialized, you know, he's the protagonist, like, he's obviously going to be okay at the end, or he's going to be fine, or like, blah, blah, blah. I know I make jokes like that all the time, you know what I mean? Like, when you're watching a movie and you're like, oh, well, this is this actor or actress, of course they're going to be fine in this fight halfway through the movie, you know what I mean? Or they're going to be fine in this fight at the end, they're going to be okay. Like, you know, Wonder Woman has another movie coming out, of course she's going to be fine, right? And so you get used to, as a spectator, you know, thinking that about movies you watch and going on and continuing and being like, okay, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. Not to say those movies are bad, right? Because they're not. But it's just something you've been socialized to think. And so when the film, like, has this moment where Adam Sandler wins, right? He wins. He wins the big jackpot. His scheme completely works. His heist works perfectly. And then he's just shot. And he dies right there. And you're like, what? My sister and I both jaw-dropped and looked at each other and went, what? It's such a powerful thing for a narrative to do, to kill off its character in that moment. That is so amazing. That delves into so much, like, existentialism, that delves into so much about reality. You know, life is here and it could be gone in a second and blah, 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 and all that stuff. And I thought that was crazy and that was amazing. That was such a risk-taking with the storytelling, and I thought it was done so effectively. And it was honestly the moment that made the entire movie. It was beautiful, wonderful, excellent. I think it's what took it from a good movie to a great movie. Kind of like the last moment in Phantom Thread, you know what I mean? Phantom Thread is a good-ass movie, and it goes from good-ass movie to great movie. The second he's like, kiss me, my dear, before I get sick, you're like, what? Oh my god. And that was the exact same moment I had during Uncut Gems. Excellent. I would also like to make a point, too, at the very, like, last minute of this podcast. I thought, like, too, with Adam Sandler. So Adam Sandler gets a bad rap for, like, yelling a lot, you know? That's the big thing. I see people, like, make fun of him for and, like, you know, tease him for, which, like, whatever. But I thought the way they used his, like, you know, this kind of like way he like yells his way through a scene in this movie was so effectively used with the character that he played and the way it worked in the narrative. So I really thought it was interesting how the directors took such a negative of how people perceive Adam Sandler's acting and turned it into something that was used positively and effectively in the movie. I thought that was excellently done. It was great. It was wonderful performances all around. I honestly, Adam Sandler killed it. Honestly, excellent. Probably I would put him on the ballot for Best Actor for sure. I thought he did excellent. But yeah, the whole movie, it takes a lot of risks in its storytelling, in the way it showcases reality and tries to showcase reality, and I think all of those risks pay off in a very excellent way. But exactly like Adam Sandler, apparently, except at the very least it works out for the movie. But anyway, thank you all so much for watching. I will see you all next week with some more 2019 recaps. This weekend we have Movies After Midnight coming out with Evelyn Smith. I believe they're covering Van Helsing. And then Nick and I have our Saturday show where we're talking about the rating system. So thank you guys so much. Next week I'll be talking about Hustlers and The Irishman with you all. And I'm very excited. And